Welcome to People Are Everything, the show that's a bit like Desert Island Discs, but rather than bring 5 songs, I ask my guests to bring the 5 people that have helped shape the person they are today. And today we're joined by Mark Hobrough. Mark is the quintessential Renaissance man, in that he started his life and career in music. He's moved into the antique space. He now hosts his own podcast called This Is Vinyl, and he's also just started a new program to help people who've been recently diagnosed with cancer. I know you're going to find him warm, funny, and full of great stories, and I just know you're going to enjoy this conversation as I did. So, without further ado, I now bring you Mark Hobrough. Well, listen, welcome, Mark. I've been looking forward to this, and I've been doing a lot of thought about our conversation, because we know each other through a kind of a weird way, don't we? I'll tell my side, and then you can put the record straight. But I remember meeting you. It was at the ACM, the Academy of Contemporary Music, which I used to run back in the day, and I think you were looking to put some kind of you were putting a project together, and you needed some talented people to join that project, and that's how we met. I think was that the first time we met?
Putting a band together for a film called Angus Thongs and Perfect Snogging, which was a really interesting thing to get involved in, because it was a friend of mine, Ian Neal, who's a music supervisor, got in touch with me and said, "Look, I'm doing this film. It's being directed by Gurinder Chadha, who did Bend It Like Beckham, and it needs a band in it. It's based on a book where the band already exists. They're called the Stiff Dillons, and the band, it exists in print form. So they've got a fan base, but nobody's ever seen them. Nobody knows what they sound like, apart from there's some descriptions in there. And I need to find a band. Who are you working with?" And I said, "Well, it's ridiculous, because you're not going to find a band that's currently working that wants to change their name and do a film and the rest of it. But why don't we just put one together?" And he was like, "Well, how do we do that?" And I said, "Well, I'll ring ACM and I'll ring BIM, where I used to work, and let's run some auditions, and let's cherry pick the band that we want to have for the film." So that's what we did. And I remember giving you a ring and saying, like, "Who have you got?" And that turned into a very long-term relationship for me with the band, and with particularly one of your old students, James Flanagan, who is now a writer producer living in LA, working with people like Dua Lipa and stuff like that. So he's done it right out.
Oh no, I do. Oh, he was brilliant. I remember that audition we did as well. It was in some sort of, it felt like a dungeon. I don't think it was, but it was like underground kind of sort of.
It was in Guildford. I can't remember which one it was, but I remember James auditioned as a drummer, and then he came back, and he's a cheeky sod, and he came back and said, "Can I audition as a singer as well?" And we're like, "What? Oh, go on then," and he was brilliant.
He was brilliant. He was absolutely standout. I really remember that. God, that was a long time ago now. Okay, well, that segues nicely into sort of telling a bit more about yourself. I mean, that's an aspect of you. So before we get into your 5, and now you know the format. So it's like I said in the last one, a bit like Desert Island Disc, but bring 5 people that have influenced you. Why don't you tell us a bit about who you are, and the sort of, the things you've achieved? I know the answer, but I'd like people listening to know more about you.
Best part of 30 years in the music industry. So compressing it right down, I started out as a radio plugger. And there is a story that comes into this later on with one of my 5. And taking records up to producers at Radio 1 and some of the independent stations around the country, but particularly people like John Peel, who, God rest him, I got on well with him, he was lovely. And I built a big promotions company from that. So we just happened to coincide with the whole mid to late 90s kind of Britpop scene. We were there at the right time. We were in Camden, which is smack in the middle of it. We shared offices with Food Records, who had Blur signed. Creation Records were down the road. And we ended up working with artists like Oasis and Radiohead, Stereophonics, Sleeper, later on Fatboy Slim, Robbie Williams. It became a sort of like a super tanker in the 90s music business world, I suppose. And it got too big and too unwieldy, so we closed it down. It's another story. And I then went out as a kind of consultant, so I variously did bits of work management-wise, managed artists. One of the girls from Massive Attack was one of mine, Sarah J. And did a lot of work for film, like we just talked about, with Ian Neil, and worked with some other artists like Melanie C and stuff. So, and Island Records for a while. We were kind of, myself and Martin, my business partner, were kind of consulting for them for a while. And latterly managing songwriters and producers. And I stopped doing that, and this is again relevant to my five. When I got a cancer diagnosis in 2016, it's prostate cancer, stage 3, and I kind of thought, okay, time out. let's stop with the music business stuff. I was at the time doing a bit of traveling. I was having to go to the States. Actually, just before that, I obviously went out to India with John Hart to see you and do a bit of work with the True School of Music, which is great fun. But the diagnosis kind of rocks you a bit, and so I'm now loving life, running an antiques and vintage shop in the middle of Northumberland. I sell a lot of vinyl and some guitars, so I kept my hand in there. I'm still in touch with lots of my old mates from the music industry, and we now get people like the Antiques Road Trip coming up and filming with us.
I know. You've been on there like, how many times have you been on the telly now? I think it's like 3.
7.
Is it?
With Antiques Road Trip, we did Celebrity Antiques Road. When's this coming out? Because we did Celebrity Antiques Road Trip a little while ago, and I'm not supposed to tell anybody who's on it. But if you guess that, if you guess that it's Nigel Planer and Alexi Sale from the Young Ones, then you'd be right. So they were in my shop, which was just incredible. The Young Ones coming in, It was
amazing.
Don't tell anyone I told you that. Okay.
Okay, and you let me know when I can tell the world.
Leave it in. So that's kind of where I am now, and so I'm 8 years down the line from living with a horrible disease and part of a gentleman's club that I never really wanted to join, but hey, it's fine. We're doing okay with it, and I'm really enjoying what I'm doing. So living in the wilds of Northumberland, I've just been out for a 2-mile walk with my idiot dog this morning in the countryside just around where we live, and it's great.
I mean, Mark, what a story. I mean, we got to know each other. You were probably at the sort of height of your music career back then, and I think we kind of bonded. I just remember meeting you and just being so kind of taken with your sort of warmth and calmness. I just remember you being extremely calm, and just that presence that you have where you just, everything's going to be fine. It's all right. And I just remember that. And I remember liking you very much straight away. And, we've stayed friends through some challenging times over the years. And I am so pleased that you're one of my you're my second, actually, Mark II. Because although you're not in my life on a daily basis, you've kind of been there at peak moments of my life. And actually, you are quite significant to me. You probably don't even know that. But if you think about some of the times that do you remember I brought my son to see you?
Very much.
And that was right at a very, very difficult time in my life. And then, moving to India and doing the True School of Music there, it was so lovely to have you and Mark over. You and Mark. I'm just obsessed with Mark's. You and John over, because it's it was such although a fantastic experience for me, it was actually quite lonely. And so to have people from England over and helping me with that project, and you were so brilliant. It was great fun. And obviously when you got your diagnosis, it was fun, wasn't it?
Very fun memories. It doesn't feel. It was 2014. It doesn't feel like that long ago. It was 10 years ago. Or it might have been even 2013.
Was it really?
2013, 2014.
I can't believe it's that long ago. Wow. Okay. Well, I remember it really fondly, and of course, then when we all heard your diagnosis and how powerful and prominent and, public. There's three P's there. So how public you were about it, because you wanted other men to take better care of themselves. Not that you hadn't taken great care, but it was just so important for you, I think, at the time for people to know.
You feel that
about this.
It's true. You feel, I certainly felt that there's a kind of responsibility, because men don't talk about these things at all, and it seems to me that it's really stupid that men don't talk about it. So I decided I would, because if I could help just one person. So if let's say I have a friend who has a husband or a partner who has two kids, and they make their partner go to get tested, and they're found that they have cancer, but they've caught it early, then those kids have got a father. And you feel, because you can, prostate cancer is one of those, so if you catch it at the right time, I was just in time, I was very, very lucky, then it can be, it can be dealt with in the sense that, it becomes a bit like managing something like diabetes or something like that. Sometimes it's a bit more serious than that, but there are steps to take that it does change your life, but it just becomes a new normal. And I wanted people to know that and not be afraid of that journey, because it is a journey, and it's the one thing that none of us are going to recover from is life. We've all got that. So yeah, I did, and I am very public about it, and I do a lot of outreach work for Prostate Cancer UK. And talk to various people, and I decided to own it. It's kind of that simple, really. It's part of me. Yeah.
Well, and you were my go-to with a dear friend of mine who'd just been diagnosed, and he was what I remember from that phone call when he called me was just how scared he was, and a feature being that a lot of men, when they get diagnosed with prostate cancer, it might be the first thing they've ever had wrong with them. I mean, us girls, we get poked around with all the time. I mean, that's just our genetics, and our biology is just so complicated. But I think men can go through their whole entire adult lives and never have any kind of investigation. So he was very, very frightened, and he was so pleased. I put you guys together, and he was so pleased to talk to you, and he felt so much more reassured about what was coming. So nobody wants this for anyone, but I'm just so glad you're still here, Mark. Step one, you're still here. Step two, you're living, your best life, and when we speak and I picture you on that Northumberland coast with your dog, it's like, I'm so glad you took that decision, and you're putting such a lot of good in the world. So I'm really intrigued to know who your five are. So let's get into it. Let's get into number one. Tell me who's
number one. It's I should explain just a little bit, I guess, that when you asked me who the five people were, it's really tempted. I'm really tempted. I suppose anybody would be, to kind of immediately go towards family. And Sam, my wife, and I, we have this thing where we talk about our biological family, but we also talk about our logical family, which is one that perhaps you would choose if or just the people that you're flung together with, that they become like family, and they are what we call our logical family. So we have two. We're very lucky. We have a biological family and a logical family. And I've kind of gone for a bit of both in here. So the first person I've chosen to do, I'm going to show you, is my granddad. There he is. So yeah, my granddad called Kenneth, and lived all of his life in the kind of Colchester, Clacton-on-Sea, Frenton-on-Sea, that Essex area. I think it's that thing, I guess, where grandchildren and grandparents, I think, have quite a special relationship. And it's not the same as a relationship that you would have with a parent. And I was very close to Grandad, and I just have these very fond memories of him. I never saw him without a shirt and tie, apart from once I watched him shaving in the morning. He had this electric razor that he would shave with. But he was the most dignified man I think I've ever met. just lovely. I don't think I ever heard him raise his voice, and I don't think I ever heard him have a bad word to say about anybody. And he just kind of lived his life, Is that back in the day where I have a feeling that him and my grandmother signed the pledge. I think he was teetotal. So I don't think I've got that gene from him at all. But yeah, he was lovely, and he used to tell this story about, and again there is a theme running through a lot of this, which is a bit of a health thing. But my grandfather had various health issues as well, and he always tells this thing about he was probably about the age I am now, and he had a stomach cancer, I think. And I wasn't allowed to go in and see him, but I do have a memory of going and being taken into this hospital and being a bit kind of freaked out as a small child. And I'm made to sit outside this room. And I don't remember this bit, but he used to tell me, he said, "Oh, you shouted, 'Get well, Grandad,' because he wasn't allowed in the room." And he said that gave him the strength to go, all right, and I will, because,
what a lovely. So lovely he told you that. That's amazing.
I watched him. He was when I was going through the early part of the music industry and stuff, he was a constant there. And my grandmother died when I was at university, and my grandfather lived a while after that. But he was kind of always there. He was always that constant. He used to call me my boy all the time. That was it, my boy. And I think I got a lot from him in terms of, you talk about, I'd never thought myself as being particularly calm, but so other people might do. Maybe that side's come from my granddad, because I think he was, nothing really seemed to faze him. He would quietly contemplate things, and he would just talk. And I don't think I ever saw him without a shirt and tie and a jacket on. It's even at the weekend. At the weekend he might have made a concession and rolled his sleeves up of his shirt or something like that. But that's about it.
But that generation, they that's it. I can picture many people from not necessarily my life, but indirectly that sometimes in 3-piece suits. You never saw them out of a 3-piece suit, and it's like a point of pride. With a kind of, as I say, daily shaving, always well turned out. It's like a generation.
He had those kind of what you call
that
kind of jumpers without the sleeves. The tank top. I think with the
tank tops,
with everything.
Lovely.
But yeah, just a really gentle, dignified man.
I
think maybe it was a sense of, I'm kind of processing it, talking to you about it, but it's probably that sense of kind of, it's all right, Grandad's there. He's got this.
Yeah. Calm authority, just like keeping you. Nothing bad's going to happen because Grandad's in the room. Yeah, and I know what you mean by that generational thing. I mean, this is like a bit random, but here's a guilty pleasure I'm going to share with you now, Mark, and I share with lots of people now. I do love a Wimpy. Love a Wimpy. Yeah. Oh, that brown derby with all the ice cream and everything, and we've got one locally here, and I think it's like literally one of my favourite places to go because it's run by this really lovely family, and it's immaculately clean, like the cleanest. Like literally, you want to come out of their toilets and compliment them and say these are the cleanest toilets you've ever seen. And they're always so cheerful, and you get all walks of life because it's just right in the middle of the high street. And I think secretly deep down we all love a Wimpy. Well, love a Wimpy. So, and I was in one the other day, and there was this grandson, probably teens, I'd say, with his grandma, and the affection between them and the ease between them. And I remember they just caught my eye. I was looking over, and it just warmed my heart. I was like, yeah, that's a very special relationship.
It really is, and I sometimes wonder whether with a grandparent, they can actually. I don't know, almost regress back to being a little kid with it, which they couldn't do when they're a parent because they're responsible for the child. But I wonder a little bit whether they can regress and kind of go, no, can't we be? My grandmother, on my mum's side, not my dad. This is my dad's dad, but on my mum's side, Edith, she was incredible because she used to take us scrumping and stuff. We had no money when we were kids, and so my mum would go out to work. My grandma, who lived down the road, would sometimes come and look after us. And my mum would come back, and there'd be kind of apples, apple pies, apple turnover, toffee, whatever. And she's going, where'd you get all this? And my grandma would be going like, yeah, and because she would take us out kind of people's gardens, and she'd be sitting there with some kind of a basket and sending us in there to throw sticks at trees to get the apples down to bring back so that she could. So yeah, but yeah, that was the
sound of that.
Regressing back to being, come on, we're all kids together. I'm your grandma, but I'm a child with you at heart. It's great.
And the scrumping's a bit of a forgotten time thing as well, isn't it? Because we live in such a world of abundance that you can get like 40 different apple types if you walk into a supermarket. But when we were kids, Mark, I think we're roughly the same age, scrumping was a thing. That and conkers, getting conkers this time of year. But scrumping was a real thing, like that you did so that you could have apple pie. I mean, it wasn't just for the fun of it, although it was fun. So, okay, well, I'm glad he's made number one on your list. He sounds like a good gent. He sounds like a nice guy that deserves pole position. What about number two?
This was a hard one because I've kind of looked at my career and my love of music and thought there's so many folk there that I could bring as a big influence in me. Anything from kind of John Lennon to JJ Burnell from the Stranglers, but the one that I picked, who has been again a constant influence, is Patti Smith, because she's a fiercely strong woman, and the whole term outside society, which is kind of generally associated with her, made me really think and question things, particularly going into my love of music and the slightly subversive, and I love my punk and my ska and stuff like that. And as I say, it could have been any number of individuals in there, but she really spoke to me in a sense that gave me a kind of real understanding and love of lyrics and how to kind of tell it like it is, and to be strong about that. And also as a female role model, someone who was incredibly strong and taught me and probably a load of other teenage blokes like me to have some respect for women, and to show not just about these hairy blokes standing up on stage doing that she could do this too. And Debbie Harry did it with Blondie. There's countless other ones, but I always go back to her. I remember going to try and find, I'd heard Because the Night on the radio, it's a single, which she wrote with Bruce Springsteen, another big hero of mine. And I was at that stage of growing up where I couldn't really afford albums, but I had a little bit of money at this point, and I wanted to go in and I wanted to buy the album that Because the Night was on. So I was rifling through Callas Records in Ponteland, just outside Newcastle, this Patti Smith section. I couldn't find it, and I started trying to panic. So I picked the album I hoped it was on. It's an album called Wave, and it's because it's not on there. But I bought it and I scrolled out the shop and I went home. And I remember playing this album back to back about 6 times, going, "It's got to be on here somewhere." But as a result, I fell in love with that album. So a lot of people say, "Oh no, Horses or Easter, that's the album for Patti Smith." For me, it wasn't. For me, it was Wave. And there's a track on there called Dancing Barefoot, which, when they finally put me in the ground, will probably be going along with me, because that's how I want to be. And just the phraseology that she uses and everything about her, and it's still there. And one of the reasons that I picked her above the other ones was I have a goddaughter. I'm not going to name her because she's had some problems, and she started to self-harm and have real troubles with life. But she's a very talented girl. She decided that she would change her name to leave the old now. But at that time, she discovered a record player and vinyl and stuff. So I picked like 3 Patti Smith albums and I put them in a package, and I sent it with a note to say, this woman has helped me through countless times in my life, and I think it's about time I handed it over to you. So would you please look after her for me? And I just hoped that it would do the same thing. And she loved it. And she's now probably almost a bigger Patti Smith fan than I am. And I know that it's helped her too. So that's the power of music and the power of the woman, that she can reach that and she can influence people. And I'm very proud to say that, she's done that with me. That was a difficult choice though, because so many musicians could have done that. But yeah, that's Patti Smith.
I love that. It's like a handing over the torch, isn't it? And you don't know who's next. And I think we've all got that special. There's also a special artist that means something deeper to you than the music itself in some ways. I mean, if I had to pick one, it'd probably be Kate Bush. I'd say, just a very influential person. Yeah, and for different reasons than Patti. Obviously, a very different artist, but put poetry into my life and put. I loved the fact that she wrote about complex human experience things and not just love, although love is very important. She's had that diversity of in her songwriting. I was very lucky
to meet Patti Smith, and it's the one time that I got completely tongue-tied and starstruck. But we, with Revolution, my old company, we got the job of working her back catalogue when it was released on CD. We did this for a few artists, so the record company would get in touch and say, "Hey, we're releasing the whole catalogue. It's coming out on CD." Back in the day when that was happening, so we got this job. We did some work on it, and then she announced she was going to do a tiny little show at the Serpentine Gallery in London. It only takes about 150 people in there, and I got 2 tickets for this. And I have a good friend called Charlie Meyer, who's a booking agent, looks after Radiohead and the Arctic Monkeys and stuff like that. And he and I are both big Patti Smith fans. We've been to see her a couple of times. And he always got me into gigs. When difficult ones that I couldn't blag for myself, he would always help me out. And this time I rang him. He was working at ITB at the time, and I was trying to get through to him, and his PA was saying, "Sorry, he's busy." I said, "Can you tell him to call me? He's got to call me. It's about Patti Smith," because I had 2 tickets and I wanted to take him this time to pay him back, but I didn't tell her what it was about. Charlie, I found out later, thought I was ringing to try and get him to get me into this show, and he was just like, "I'm not going to even call him back. It's impossible. You'll never get into that." And so I had a guy called Adrian who was managing a band called Menswear sat in my office, and he sat there the whole time because he knew I'd got 2 tickets, and he was a big fan as well, and he wanted to go. So in the end I was like, "Come on, we'll go. You're coming with me. You're my +1." And then Charlie rang me the next day and said, "I'm really sorry. Before you say anything, there's no way I could have got you into that gig." And I said, "Charlie, it was me that had the 2 tickets. I wanted to take you."
No.
And I'm not kidding. It was probably the best show I've ever seen in my life. She played for about 3 hours. I thought it was about 20 minutes. And I met her afterwards, and I couldn't talk. I literally couldn't talk. She signed something for me. I can't remember what it was. I was just like, okay, you have this aura about you that, and I'll talk to anybody. I've met God knows how many idiot musicians over the years, and I will talk to anybody. Couldn't talk to her. Yeah.
Oh, that's really amazing. I mean, I remember someone saying to me, who would you love to most meet? And I said Kate Bush, but I said, that was the question. What's the most amount of money you'd ever spend to see an artist? And I said, if I got to see Kate Bush play live, I think I'd pay any money. But remember, she did that gig about 10 years ago, and it's just sold out in a second. So I get what you mean. I absolutely get what you mean. And it's wonderful that she's had such an impact on you in so many different ways. Okay, good. Yeah. And I'm glad you got to meet her. Did you when you met her, did you say all this? Did you say how important she was to you? Or did you just go,
I think I said something like, got Wave changed my life or something like that, because it did. But that was about it. I couldn't talk. Couldn't speak at all.
Oh, bless you. All right then. Well, let's move on to number 3.
I'm staying with music.
Who's third on your list?
A little bit, and this is going back to logical family rather than biological family. It's a gentleman called John Mostyn, and John started out as a booking agent in Birmingham for a little band called the Specials and the Beat, and later went on to manage the Beat and Fine Young Cannibals, people like Alison Moyet and stuff. And I first met John. Well, actually, I knew he managed a little band called Terry and Jerry that I'd booked when I was an Ents manager, and I kind of knew them a little bit. And there's a girl called Ingrid that worked for John that I knew who was connected with that. And I got my first job as a radio plugger, working for a little outfit called, what were they called? IRP, International Radio Promotions, that was it. Who was run by an absolute idiot of a guy who never paid me. But anyway, I thought, okay, I'm going to bring some work in here. So I've got a connection. I can find this guy, John, who manages Fine Young Cannibals. And I got his number. So I rang him out of the blue and said, "Hi, my name's Mark. I'm a radio plugger, and I just wondered, if you were looking for any help with Fine Young Cannibals, because we can give you a priority." I was so naive. I mean, really naive. I was like, just literally come off the bus, if you know what I mean. And I remember John listening a little bit and said, "Well," he said, I think we're okay at the moment. We've just gone past 1 million sales, and I'm at number 1 in the charts with the band event. But tell you what, if you want to come up to Birmingham and meet me, I'll take you for lunch, and we can talk about it." And that was John's very nice way of saying, "Bugger off." But I didn't. And I got on the train and I went up to meet him, and we went for lunch. We've been friends ever since. And John is he's a wonderful man. He's again another one of these very calm, very kind of been there, seen it, done it. It tells so many amazing stories about the ska scene and the whole two-tone development of the two-tone stuff, and obviously managing the Beat and becoming a global success, and even later on with Fine Young Cannibals, and traveling all over the world, playing festivals and stuff. But he was like, and still is. In fact, he stayed with us a few weeks ago. A bit like my mentor. I don't know. He's he's a cross between an older brother, and he's probably, I don't know, 15, 18 years older than me, I guess, something like that. An older brother, an uncle, a mentor. I don't know what. He constant throughout my entire career in the music industry, and every time I've had a problem, I've been able to ring John and go, "What would you do?" And he just, you can hear him. You can hear the cogs whirring, and you can hear a deep breath. Well, yeah. I remember a time when, and it's just, and suddenly it's kind of, yeah, of course, yeah. Why am I worrying about this? Lovely man, very close to John. His daughter now lives down the road from me. I remember him saying to me one time, I'd known his daughter since she was quite small as well. And he rang me one time and said, "Oh, I can't believe this. My daughter has rebelled." I said, "Rebelled against you? How, you've done everything. What are you talking about?" He said, "Can't believe she's done this." I said, "Well, what? It must be serious." "She's joined the police force." and yeah, she still is. She's on the serious crime squad in Newcastle now, and lives down the road. She looks after the dog sometimes. But yeah, it's he's a very special man. I'm very, very, very fond of John, and he's helped me enormously. And he's shaped my attitude through the music industry. Well, I think part of it was, whatever the issue is, it can be solved. It's not that important. Don't worry about it. We can figure this out. And it's been great to have someone like that constantly there. And again, I don't talk to him loads, but we talk regularly, and we see each other when we can. And yeah, just lovely guy. He now, I think, runs events for a big gardens in Birmingham. He's still in Birmingham, that are attached to a stately home, and he runs events there and stuff like that. And he has a lovely time.
Oh, it sounds like he deserves it. I think the people like that are like you say, you don't speak to them often, but they're kind of like grounding you, and you don't have to fill in any gaps. You think you can just phone them with the thing that you need to talk about, and they know you and they know enough about your life to you don't have to spend hours kind of filling them in. And I can relate to that. And also this idea of somebody on your shoulder. I bet even when John's not on the phone, you're still thinking, what would John do here? It's like it's almost like ever present, isn't he? He's just like, what? How would he handle this? I bet you find yourself saying that quite often.
And he makes me laugh. It's great. It was some of the stories he comes out with.
That's important.
We laugh a lot. But yeah, he's as I say, he's family. He's part of my logical family.
I like that. I quite like this logical thing as well. I'm going to nick that. That's all right.
Everyone probably has what they call a logical family, and it's only kind of 2 letters different to a biological family, 3 letters different to a biological family.
Yeah.
But it's true. I think you create your family around you. You're born with one. You're born with that family, which you have those blood ties, and those can't be replaced or taken away or anything. But you create your logical family, your circle. It wasn't me that came up with it.
Yeah,
it was a friend of ours called Chris who came up with that description, and he's fiercely protective over that of his logical family. He was adopted.
All right, we'll tell Chris.
Yeah, he'll probably see this. He's a nosy sod. He'll watch it.
Good. I hope he does. Okay, good. So that was John. He sounds marvellous. I like the sound of John very much. Okay, number 4. Who's
I've
gone
for. This involves you a little bit, but I've gone for a person who's been another constant in my life. There's another famous person, another constant in my life, but and it's become more relevant to me the older I've got, and partly because I've had this cancer diagnosis as well. But it's Sir Bobby Robson, and Sir Bobby Robson, for those of you who don't know, was a footballer. He went on to manage Ipswich Town. My father is an Ipswich Town fan, so I was very aware of Bobby Robson because they're my second team, and I used to watch him with my dad and stuff like that. And Bobby was always this kind of, my God, this guy, he's incredible, and he's a Geordie, he's like me, and although he's got a much stronger accent than I have. And Sir Bobby Robson later went on to manage England, and I still remember that Italian 90 as being the best World Cup ever, as far as I was concerned. I was enthralled with it, absolutely engrossed with it. Then he went on to manage my team, went on to manage Newcastle. And that was the most wonderful time, I think, the Kevin Keegan era and Bobby Robson managing Newcastle. And I'm not a massive football fan, but I'm proud to be a Geordie, and I'm proud of my tribe, and I love my team, even though we're crap. I love them. But I don't know if you remember when you brought your son up, and we went on a stadium tour around Newcastle. Around Newcastle United.
I do remember it,
and
very much.
We got taken all over the place, into the players' lounge and into the where they film all the TV stuff and out pitch side and stuff. And I don't know if you remember this, but a guy took us up to the top and he said, "Okay, everyone take a seat," and said, "You sit there, you sit there." And he pointed at a seat that I sat down on a seat.
Yeah, I do remember.
He started talking about the various members of Newcastle United, the important people that are there. And he said to me, "Would you just stand up and look under your seat?" And I stood up and I looked and the seat flipped up, and it said Sir Bobby Robson, and it was his seat I was sitting in, and I nearly lost it. I nearly burst into tears at the time. But the relevance to me later on is that Sir Bobby Robson has the Sir Bobby Robson Cancer Centre in Newcastle, which he funded when he knew he'd got cancer, and he knew that he didn't have a lot of time left, and it is the most state-of-the-art cancer centre pretty much in the country, attached to the Freeman Hospital in Newcastle. And it's where I was treated. So I had 37 radiotherapy treatments in there. I still have to go there. I'm partly here because of him, because of what he put into the city that he loved, and to provide for other people, and the effort in his lifetime that he did, and his legacy that's still surviving now. That Sir Bobby Robson Foundation is still providing cancer care for the people in the city that he loved and that he grew up in, and the team that he loved. And I can't thank him enough, because if anybody has had an influence on my life and my borrowed time, because I was told in 2016 that I probably only had 2 to 3 years to live. My numbers were so bad, and it was down to the care and the treatment I've got and the team in there. There's a guy called Ian Pedley, another guy called Nick Willis, that I got from that. That means I'm still here, and I'm still talking to you, and I'm still able to live life. So in terms of someone who is just been a massive influence and on so many levels, he's got to be up there. He's absolutely got to be up there. An amazing man, and
Amazing.
what a legacy. And if I could do a fraction of what he's done to help people, you talked about me helping, but I haven't done very much, not compared to that. But he's kind of allowing me to have a voice still, which is great. So thank you, Sir Bobby. Yeah.
Well, I mean, gosh, and I feel very honoured that I was there for that moment, because I do remember it. I remember it. And you could have been anywhere, because there was a whole line of seats
in that place,
and that's the one. Well, no, I know, but they don't all have names under them. But this was like this little special area, and it did have names under it. And for you to sit there was, but I remember that trip. I really do remember that trip. I remember it for different reasons, actually. If I may, if I just tell you my account of that. So it was a very difficult time in my life. I had to move to work in India, which although was incredible, wasn't really the road I was expecting to go on. And I've got loads of photographs from that trip, and I find them quite hard to look at, actually, because I looked terrible in them. I mean, I just looked terrible. And I remember that when I look back, that was just a very, very hard time for me. And I think it was reflected in those photographs. And I remember it being a very difficult time for Connor, my son. And I remember sort of, although he was really doing well with that trip, he was enjoying himself. He was really struggling. I think he always tells me he wasn't, but I think that's him just protecting me. But he was really struggling, because I had to leave him. He's only 11, and I had to leave him for a month at a time. And it was incredibly difficult. Wonderful experience. I don't regret whole heaps of it. But again, there you were. I don't know. It's just weird, isn't it? I wasn't at my best. And who did I want to go and see? And I popped him on an aeroplane and said, right, we're going to go and see Mark, and we're going to walk around Newcastle and drink pints. He had his first pint. Do you remember?
I feel slightly guilty about the fact
I'm in a bit of trouble.
But he ended up being a Newcastle fan, for which I feel almost responsible for.
He did?
The poor lad.
But, well, I'm glad to have been part of that story. Thank you for sharing that. So number five. Oh, no, hang on.
No, you're
I don't want to rush
not
you.
At all. I was just kind of thinking. But number five is both my family and my logical family. I've just chosen my wife, Sam, who's been amazing for, God, how long? She'd have been out by now, probably. I think it's 24, 25 years or something like that. But another strong woman, another person that is there quietly, calm, unassuming, very loving, very giving. And as she when we first met, I knew her before we got together for quite a while, and she says I was one of the only people in the music industry who was actually nice to her and would buy her a pint when she was at various gigs and stuff, because she was going out with another A&R guy. And she tells me that I was quite nice. I tell her that I remember it. Of course I remember it. But when we first got together, obviously a lot of my job was being out late, going to shows and after shows, and that was part of what I had to do. It's also part of what I liked doing, and being out. She had a proper job. She was working at ENO English National Opera, so she had to actually be up in the morning and go. So occasionally I kind of stumble into at kind of 2 o'clock in the morning and kind of get to go, oh, I love you, and and eventually she just said, now listen, I'm getting a bit sick of this. She said, I don't really care where you've been, who you've been with, how long you're out, what you've done, or when you come home. But I've got one rule. I was like, well, what's that? She said, when you get in, just don't wake me up. And I was like, what?
I knew you were going to say that.
I was like, okay. So suddenly in that one sentence, like all of the sort of naughtiness of stuff that me staying out late and everything, it's just goes, because she's just nixed the whole thing. She's kind of gone like, I don't care, just don't wake me up. And so as a result of that, I probably ended up calming down a little bit and going, oh well.
Yeah, but also, but if you think about it, what is she really saying? Is she saying, I see you, I accept you, I love everything about you, I love that this is important to you, but that's the only thing I ask. She's not giving you a hard time about it. She's not saying, what time do you call this? Who have you been with? It's almost like it's a total acceptance of that you and her are just it now, and here's my one rule.
But
I love that.
It is.
Brilliant.
It's kind of still. I still kind of get baffled by it a little bit, and kind of go, how did she do that? Because it was like in one with one sentence. It was kind of like, everything that I was doing was just kind of. Well, it's not particularly naughty or big or clever anymore, is it? It's just kind of just going.
Oh, I see. So your bubble was actually
she
actually burst your bubble a bit.
Yeah. But since then, we've I mean, she's my best friend. We've run the business together, and again, I know it's been really hard for her with the journey that a health journey that I've been on, and she's been amazing. So when I was first diagnosed, we didn't know what was going to happen. She's like, "Come on, what do you want to do? Do you want to sell up? Should we sell everything? Should we move to France? We both love France. We're there quite a bit. We could just go and live there and do what we like, and we'd have just about enough money if we were careful, if we sold the house and what have you." I went, no, I want to open a shop. And she's like, you mad? So we found this place. But she's supported me all the way through, and I know it's been hard for her as well. So it's kind of, I just feel very at peace, with this, and we don't have kids, but we do have the idiot dog that's been messing up the sound on this lovely podcast, and the cat and the chickens and the business. And it's just we live the best life. We don't have loads of cash. Whatever, don't need it. It's been great. So yeah, she's been amazing.
Well, you said to me recently, I think you said something like, in our home, which sounds beautiful, by the way. Your life, I think, is how it ought to be. But you said to me the other day, or fairly recently, something like, time is the new currency in our house. And I really
that's
like
exactly what it is.
That is such a...
We're not working any longer for money. The new currency that we have is time, and it's quality time. It's time to... this realization that we both have now that I'm fine, I'm fit, I can pretty much do anything that anybody else can do. But I was in hospital earlier in the year with kidney issues caused by the cancer. It's not cancer of the kidneys, but it's kidney problems. And you suddenly realize that how precious time is, and the ability just to be able to get in the car and drive somewhere, or go to France again, or go and see friends, or go and have a week in Scotland, and how important that kind of stuff is, and how you take it for granted, and you shouldn't, because having that time and working for that time is everything. It just is, and that is our new currency now. That's what we're working towards. That's how we run our lives. The work-life balance thing is something which is often talked about. Loads of people talk about this work-life balance. I think we genuinely have that, but we've prioritized that, and we've prioritized the time rather than the work part. Work is a means to an end, and actually I really enjoy it. What I do is not. I don't feel like it's a job. It's just something I do, and it's great fun, But it's still work. You still have responsibilities and stuff. But yeah, you're right. That's what it should be. So don't take it for granted, kids.
Yeah, no, listen, I always get accused of living my life. Even when I was very young, I was like, always aware of time, actually, and everyone thought I was being morbid, but actually, I did used to think about the years ahead and how I was going to use them. And a dear friend of mine started to write. I don't know if he's finished it yet. I'm going to get him on this podcast at some point. But he's written a book called 30 Summers, and he wrote it, I think, when in his 50s, on the understanding that, with a fair wind, if he lived to an average age, he'd have 30 summers left. And his sort of woven a memoir around it. And it sort of struck me. I was like, wow, 30 summers. That's not a lot of summers. It doesn't feel like a lot of summers, especially as most of them can be a bit crap weather-wise. You know what I mean? And so in a way that even that, the fact that it's a summer thing is like, when you have a good summer, it's like a gift from the heavens, isn't it? Because it's so rare and so precious as time is. So no, I when you said that to me, I shared that around a bit, that thought that day. I remember telling people about that conversation.
It's really important, and it's this realization. You can have all the money in the world, you can have the massive house, you can have multiple cars, you can have all the pension plans and everything and plans, so you can put all of this stuff into place. Doesn't necessarily mean they're going to happen. So live a bit more in the moment. That's what we're doing. So we have lots of little short-term plans. I know what we're doing. I know we're going to up to Scotland next week for a little place on the side of a loch, which we try and do every year, which is brilliant. And then 2 months later, we're going to try and get a week in the sun in the Canaries. And then a few weeks after that, we're going to try and get to the Netherlands and down to Belgium. So we just plan this stuff and go, okay, well, let's work towards these things. Let's do that. That's what we want to do. So why not? And it's not a case of we're working towards retirement and saving furiously for that to do it. I might not get there.
Yeah.
None of us might get there.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I'm not saying it's not without its challenges, but that does sound amazing. And I follow your little antics, your antiques, and I love the idea of your little van driving down to France and picking up your little treasures and bringing them back, and usually with a case full of something wine orientated, if I remember rightly. This is but it's a nice life. It's a nice way to be. I love it. Anyway, so we're talking about nice way to be. So we've talked through the 5, and now as I want to introduce to this as part of the format, really, I'm really intrigued to, I can pick some threads into those 5 people, and obviously I don't know you. You're not, like I say, a daily part of my life, but there's certainly characteristics that you've talked about in these other people that I recognise in you. But I wonder if you recognise those people in yourself and how they have helped shape the person you are today.
It's a very good question. I think at the time where you're just in those relationships and you're, and obviously I never have been in relationships with Patti Smith and Sir Bobby Robson or anything like that. But I think you can recognise the traits in people that you embrace and that you agree with and that you want to explore. So with someone like Patti Smith or with John Mostyn, or that there is that rebellious side of me. There always has been. There's that bit within me which is, you don't tell me what to do. You don't tell me how to do it. I will go my own way. I'll plow my own furrow, and I will make mistakes, and that's fine. I'll own those mistakes, and it's okay. But I've always been encouraged by, as I said, with someone like Patti Smith. It could have been a number of people. It could have been some. But they've all got a really subversive streak. They've all got this kind of bit that's just to one side of society and looking in and kind of going, no, I've got a viewpoint and I've got a strong viewpoint and I want to get that across. So I certainly recognise that in myself, but I also recognise the fact that there's an element of I need to be brought down to earth a little bit. I need to be brought back into reality a little bit, and I think that's where maybe my granddad was pretty good, because he'd go, yeah, whatever. That's where Sam's been very good. It's like, yeah, whatever,
Yeah.
Go on, off you go. Yeah.
The dishes still need doing.
A little bit when you've had your little play or whatever. So yeah, I do. I recognise in myself what those people have brought to me and encouraged in me, which I'm very grateful for. But Sam also needs. She knows sometimes that she can walk in the kitchen or in the living room when I've got something on particularly loud, and it's usually a particular type of record. It might be, I don't know, someone like New Model Army or whatever, or the Stranglers or the Clash, or and she knows that if I'm in that kind of mood, it was the Ruts the other night, and it's loud, I'm processing something, and it's probably best just to leave me alone, to let me live with my loud, aggressive, lyrically, I don't know, upfront life, I suppose. I don't know how you describe it, but I think everybody needs those.
Well, it's a side of you, isn't it? It's obviously a side of you that kind of needs to sort of
big side of me, and then that is how I kick off, and I do it in private, and it might be a bit loud when I say it's in private, but I don't take that kind of aggression or angst or anything out on other people. I just process it.
No.
For which, again, I'm grateful. I'm not that sort of person, because I don't like those sort of people that
But I say I view it as that's what gives you your depth and complexity. Because you are a nice guy, Mark. You just are a nice guy, whether you like it or not. But I've always known there's deeper rivers. It's not. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with being nice, but there's deeper rivers with you, and I think that's how that maybe gets expressed, and even then, there's
a certain. I've always had this, even, but I've always had a cut-off point with. Can be with people, can be with ideals, whatever. But there are always lines, and I'll let a lot of stuff go. I've got a very slow fuse, for example, and I will let a lot of stuff go and just kind of, okay, it's fine, it's not important. But there does come a time where I go, okay, enough, and then I will just go, I don't want anything to do with that person anymore, because you're just going to take from me. And you're just going to annoy me. And actually, it's far better, that we just part company. I don't necessarily hate those people. I just can't be bothered. It's almost worse. So hate is a kind of a very emotive state, and it can take a lot out of you. With me, I think I've just come to this situation, particularly after a cancer diagnosis, when you're told that you might not live. You kind of go, okay, well, I just can't be asked, can't be bothered. See ya.
Can I just say, I just want to bring in another Mark for a moment before we wrap up, because I do seem to collect Marks, you're right. And we have a mutual friend who I'm going to get on this show for sure, Mark Bounds, the Disco Badger, as you call him.
Yeah.
Well, everyone calls him, actually. I remember, and it stuck with me forever, and I'm not going to say the word because, it's not that kind of show. But he has what he calls a no, put in any swear word you like, probably the worst one, but it's a no policy, and that's how he lives. Is like, if you're not someone who's going to bring him something positive, he just doesn't work with you, and that stuck with me for years. Like, just work with people that lift you and bring you something, and be with people that lift you and bring you something, because there are 8 billion to play with. You don't have to tolerate people who take your energy down. So I always remember that. And one day I might get brave enough to say the actual word he says. But so listen,
he's right. I mean, I have, it's as a wrap up thing, if you like. I have a final thing. We've all got one of these. We've all got a phone, and now we have the luxury of seeing who it is that's calling us. And it's just a dog.
Oh, hello.
But if a name comes up on my phone and I just look at it and go, oh, then I know it's time to
they're
stop.
out of your life. Yeah, honestly, I've said that so many times in my life, Mark. Because you do know, don't you, when a name comes up and you go, "Oh, look, it's Mark," I'm going to answer that. Or if it's it's them. Okay, so that there's no need for it. There's no need, and but you know what? It might not be that they're a bad person; they're just not right for you, and therefore no one's winning, right? If everybody's having a bad experience, no one's winning. So listen, I do want to ask you this final question because it's it's part of the format, Mark. And we've got to stick to the format. We can just you and I could talk for hours, but here's the final question, which is and you've kind of touched on it already in terms of your sort of renewed focus on time and giving support to others. But, you know, you've had all this love and support in your life. You've had these big influences. By everybody's measure, you've lived a great life thus far. So what are you going to do to pay that forward? How are you going to help?
How am I going to help? I think there's something that I always wanted to do, and actually there's 2 or 3 people at the moment that have got what I've got, and I've been talking to them, including your friend. And a little while ago, I thought I came up with this idea of a charity, and I've talked to you about this before a while ago, called Because We Can, and I've never got round to doing it. And Because We Can is the first half of the word cancer, and Because We Can is something which should be empowering, and it should take the fear out of people that are diagnosed. Doesn't matter what sort of cancer, you know, there's God knows how many forms. It's horrible, but just because you got it doesn't mean that life stops. And it's to try and put that message out there. And I've revisited it recently because it kind of got put on the back burner. I got busy. That's what happens with people with life. You know, you get busy. But I still think it's something which I should do, and I should try and put, even if it's something that I just start off and then it's given to other people to run later on. It's something which I think is important. I don't think there can be enough of these charities or goodwill companies, I don't know what you want to call them, but to me, it's not about raising money. It's about taking the fear away from it, and a realization that you are still a human being, you are still alive, you can do stuff, and it shouldn't be viewed as something which is going to stop you. So I should, yes, that's something I think I would like to do, along with a lot of other stuff.
I like that very much. No, I love that message, because you're right. I mean, the people I've had brushes with cancer in my life, with my friends, people very, very dear to me, and it can reduce your life to the hospital room and the medication and the treatments and stuff like that. But I love the idea of building a parallel story to that, which is you are still who you are. You have still got this rich and diverse life around you, and perhaps that's part of the whole experience, and probably very helpful to have a broader view when you're trying to heal. So no, I like that very much. You definitely need to do that. So we're going to hold you to that one, Mark. We're going to you've put this into this podcast now. You have to make it happen. Well, listen, thank you so much for today, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
All the best. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of People Are Everything. I hope you enjoyed listening to my conversation with Mark. I told you he was an absolute darling, and he was. So if you've enjoyed this show, please like and subscribe and leave a review. I'm trying to build my audience, and it would really help me a lot. And if you'd like to participate, please get in touch. You can find me on LinkedIn, Julia Duthie, and just message me and let's start a conversation. So thank you again for listening. See you next time. Bye.